All right, today we're going to architect a solution for what I like to call a silent killer of cloud projects. We're building a blueprint, a real plan to manage one of the most underestimated challenges out there, resource limits across multiple clouds. And look, this isn't just about avoiding some annoying error messages. This is about building a framework so you can scale predictably and with confidence.
So think about this. When a huge cloud project just suddenly stops dead in its tracks, what's the first thing you blame? Probably a critical bug, right? Or maybe some kind of fundamental flaw in the design. Yeah, those are the usual suspects. But the real culprit is often something you're not even looking for.
And that's it, right there. The project killer is the cloud quota. These are just the default resource limits that providers like AWS, Azure, and GCP put on your accounts, and they can bring your most important projects to a screeching halt. And you know it's always going to happen at the absolute worst possible moment.
Okay, so let's really frame this problem correctly. We've got to stop thinking of quotas as just some technical annoyance. We need to start treating them for what they really are, a huge and often completely unmanaged business risk.
You know, this might sound made up, but I promise you, this is a real conversation happening in postmortems at companies you definitely know. Just imagine your biggest product launch of the year completely failing, not because of a bug, but because you literally couldn't spin up enough servers to handle the traffic. It's a total disaster, and the worst part is, it's completely preventable.
And this chart just perfectly captures the whole issue. I call it the quota management paradox. Over on the left, you can see how much priority teams usually give this stuff. It's basically an afterthought. But then on the right, look at the actual business impact when you hit one of those limits unexpectedly. It is catastrophic. And that huge gap between perception and reality, that's where all the danger is.
So how do we fix this? Well, the very first step in our blueprint is to build a rock-solid foundation. And what that means is creating a single source of truth for all of your quota and usage data across every single cloud provider you use. And this slide right here shows you why this is so tricky. I mean, look at it. Each provider calls them something different. Service quotas, subscription limits, quotas, and even worse, they all use completely different APIs to let you see them. You just can't manage what you can't see, and in a multi-cloud world, your data is scattered all over the place.
So the crucial first move is to build an aggregation layer. We break it down into 3 simple steps. First, you have to connect to each of those different native APIs. Second, and this is key, you normalize the data. That means an Azure vCPU limit and a GCP vCPU quota start looking like the exact same metric in your system. And finally, you put it all in one centralized dashboard. All of a sudden, that invisible wall becomes visible, and you have a level of control you just didn't have before.
Okay, now that you can actually see all the data, you can start building automations on top of it. This part is all about getting away from that slow, painful manual ticket process and actually empowering your teams with self-service tools. Just look at this comparison. It says it all. On the left, that's the old way. A developer is blocked, they create a ticket, and then they wait, sometimes for weeks. But on the right, that's the new way. That same developer just goes to a self-service portal, the request is automatically checked against rules you've already defined, and boom, it's approved in minutes. This isn't just a small efficiency gain. This is a massive change in how fast your teams can move.
All right, so with a foundation of data and some smart automation, now we can get to the really cool part. We can go from being reactive to being predictive. This next phase is all about using that historical data to see problems coming and stop them long before they ever happen.
I mean, just pause and think about that for a second. What would you do differently if your system could tell you today that a critical production service is on track to hit its database connection limit in 3 months? That's a total game changer, right? It takes you out of fighting fire mode and puts you into a truly proactive stance.
And look, this isn't magic or some crystal ball. It's just data-driven foresight. By capturing and analyzing your usage data over time, you can apply some pretty simple trend analysis and forecasting. You're basically giving your future self the gift of time, and you get to completely sidestep all those last-minute emergencies.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. All this talk of self-service and automation, it might sound a little risky. And honestly, it would be if it wasn't for this final and maybe most critical piece of the blueprint, implementing smart guardrails that let your teams move fast, but also move safely.
And these are not just simple on or off switches. We're talking about sophisticated, configurable rules. Like, for example, any quota increase that will raise the monthly cost by more than $500 requires a manual approval. Or maybe no single request can increase a quota by more than 20% at a time.
These aren't just technical controls. They are basically agreements that build trust between your platform teams and your developers, and that's what enables real autonomy at scale.
So when we bring this all together, when we put all the pieces in place, what we've built is so much more than just a technical solution. It's a fundamental shift in how your entire organization operates. You're moving from a state of constant reactive firefighting to one of calm, proactive governance.
And the impact here is massive. By implementing a system like this, you could see up to a 90% reduction in the manual, repetitive work your cloud platform team has to deal with. That frees them up to work on high-value stuff instead of just processing tickets. I mean, just imagine what your best engineers could achieve with all that time back.
So we end right back where we started, but with a totally new perspective. Once you get rid of these invisible walls, once you give your teams the freedom to scale safely and on their own, the question is no longer, will we hit a limit? The question becomes, what amazing things will we build next?